morning, my friends, and welcome to another outstanding weekend update. From very high above, all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Saturday. Last week, and I don't remember if it was on this program or if it was on Cowboy State Politics Live, but I brought you the story of a whole bunch of Republican candidates refusing to show up to a Republican Party debate. A Republican primary election is not a public event, despite what the media wants you to believe. It is a private election of a private organization. Granted, membership to the private organization only requires that you sign a piece of paper saying that you are part of it. And also granted, taxpayers pay for the Republican primary election. But that doesn't negate the facts that the Republican Party is a private organization and that the primary election is itself private. And so, if you're running to represent that private organization at any level, that you would show up for a debate sponsored by that private organization. And yet, there have been a bunch of candidates across the state who have decided that they really don't even need to show up at a Republican Party-sponsored debate for the office that they are seeking to represent Wyoming Republicans in. If all of this sounds contradictory, it's because it is. How could you possibly represent a group of people if you don't even talk to them? Well, you can't. And all of this is just dripping with hypocrisy. Those candidates, in name only, are Ann Ziegenhorn, who is running to represent House District 3 against Earl Collier. Earl joined me on the live program earlier this week, and I'll probably publish his interview on the podcast on Monday. Douglas Moore is the next no-show. He's running to represent House District 31 against Representative John Baer. I'm sure we'll have Representative Baer on the program before too long. The next no-show alleged Republican is Troy Clacom. This Republican in name only is running to represent House District 1 in Crook County, and he's running against Zeta Knuckles Anderson. We did an interview with her not that long ago, and it's available on the program. And then there's Dwayne Dillinger. Love that guy. He's running for Wyoming Senate District number 23 against Abby Angelos. Old Dwayne decided that it wasn't important for him to show up at a Republican primary debate either. And here's the thing about all of these jokers. If they're not willing to stand up and defend their positions and argue for the reasons that you should elect them, then why should anybody assume that when you want them to argue for something that's important to you, that they'll actually do that? None of them even showed up for the job interview. Why should we think that they would actually do that job? That, my friends, is patently absurd. In the end, all of their opponents showed up to the debate, even though it kind of just turned into a town hall event. On Thursday, I spoke with Dwayne Dillinger's opponent, current Representative Abby Angelos. Here's that discussion.
Algorithm?
No, algorithm.
Oh. Okay.
Not Al Gore. If I could fire you for saying that word in my studio, I would. But too bad it's your studio.
Al Gore.
All right. Well, now we're joined by Representative Abby Angelos. She's running for the Wyoming Senate out of Campbell County. Abby, welcome to the program.
Thanks, David. I hope you can hear me okay.
Oh, yeah. Sounds great.
All right.
How are you this morning?
Well, thanks. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you showing up, unlike your opponent, who apparently doesn't show up to things. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. It's important to, speak directly to the people. That's why I'm here.
I couldn't agree more. So it's been a while since you've been on the show, like years, it feels like.
Yeah.
So why don't you take a minute or two and just tell my audience about yourself?
Yeah. So I am born and raised in Campbell County. My family has had a business here for decades, almost over 65 years. Grew up here as a pastor's kid. My dad has pastored a church here for 40 years. married my high school sweetheart, have raised my 3 kids here. I did move away for a little stint in Portland, Oregon.
We all have those adventures. I did that too.
Yeah, realized we wanted to come home, and we did. So we've lived here. My husband worked in the oil and gas. I've been in all kinds of ministry positions, youth ministry, women's ministry, young adults ministry. And, when COVID hit and they were masking my kids and mandating that people get vaccines, that really lit a fire under me. I was always interested in national politics, but never state. So it really lit a fire in what was going on. My husband and I had to take, when oil goes negative, there's not a whole lot of jobs.
Yeah, especially in Campbell County.
Yeah. So we took our part-time gunsmithing business full-time during COVID and have been navigating a small business ever since. And if you could imagine how that's gone under the Biden administration, that was fun, but it's been an adventure. And so representing the people of Campbell County, it's truly an honor. I enjoy it. Ministry is similar to politics. I tell people that all the time, and I enjoy advocating for them and listening to them, and it's an honor.
All right. So first question, Abby. I mean, you seem to be pretty popular in your district. You've been in the House for a couple of terms. Why did you choose to jump to the Senate? I mean, I'm pretty sure you would get reelected to the House if you just wanted to stay there. So why move to the Senate?
Well, I wanted to continue the work that I promised in the House, that, continue that work into the Senate. I don't think people are used to politicians, and I'd like to say I'm not a politician, even though I am, in actually keeping their promises. I ran on being a conservative, watching the budget, protecting the unborn, protecting our Second Amendment rights, property tax relief. Like, I ran on those things because I went and knocked on, 1,700 doors and talked to the people. That was their issues. Banning men from women's sports. That was huge. And so when I went in, I promised to do that. And that will be my promise in the Senate. I'm going to tell you who I am. This is who I am. No surprise. Let's take those conservative values and that promise into the Senate.
Okay, you used the word conservative a couple of times, and you and I know that thing gets thrown around like, I mean, it's better than hard candy at a parade. So what does it mean to be a conservative?
Well, I think this is such an interesting question that you asked, because I was just talking to somebody. Conservative has changed. Like, my vision of conservative, and you're fiscally conservative, you watch your budget, you want to make sure that we're not increasing taxes on people. We protect life. We stand for life at conception. We want to make sure that people aren't paying more than what government can grow. Like, those kind of like fundamentals of conservatism. And then now we have a new definition of conservatives, and somebody told me, they're like, it's like you are a vintage conservative. And I thought, that is an interesting idea. I didn't think I was vintage, but I mean, it's true. Conservative has changed. I think it has morphed. I haven't dug into what that is, but I think we are seeing a real change in Wyoming and in the Republican Party. And conservatism, to me, is not the same as someone else, even though they think they may be a conservative. The definition has changed.
Well, it's interesting to me because, and it always has been as long as I've been doing this show, because you always get my favorite one, perhaps you know him, was Michael von Flattern. I mean, that guy threw around the word conservative all over the place, and he had one of the worst voting records. Terrible on guns. I mean, he was just obscenely bad. But it is always the folks that claim, oh, yeah, I'm conservative, because they know that most people in Wyoming are. They watch their budget. They have to. They believe the reason they live in Wyoming is to be the heck away from just about everybody else. And so they want government to stay out of their lives. Free markets, free enterprise, keeping government out of business. You live in a county where, I mean, the whole place is driven on energy. And the worst possible scenario, I think, for an energy company is when government sticks its nose into it. And I'm sure you, more than anybody, know that really hampers business, and it's biting off our nose to spite our face. It's really, really terrible, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, and being in a business where you're only buying guns usually if you have extra money, and if energy,
or if Joe Biden's the president.
Yeah. Actually, under a Democrat president, gun sales are usually really good.
I know, it's amazing.
People are fearful, But part of the issue is how much money do you have? If it's a boom or bust economy in an energy sector, we lived boom bust. It can be tough. So people do have to watch their budgets, and that's when I look at legislation that comes through, or I'm looking at a bill, I am thinking, how is this going to affect their life in the future? What is this going to do to their pocketbook, to the dinner table? Like, I look at those things, but I'm a mom. I've budgeted.
Right.
I've been a stay-at-home mom a lot. Like, that's important. And it's important that I guess I have a different look and an out view on a bill that comes through, because I'm thinking, like, how's this going to affect my constituents at home?
Okay, so you're on the Appropriations Committee, pretty powerful committee. In your view, what's the one or two or three most important issues that Wyoming is facing right now?
Oh, Lord, you can't narrow it down to
I
three.
know.
Especially as an appropriator. You're looking at the whole shebang. I think the biggest issue, like, that I can just think off the top of my head, and they're all going to be equal. I am concerned with our education funding. We're looking at, a deficit of upwards of $800 million in a few years.
Okay, explain that.
So just a deficit in the spending. We're looking at our coal leases, and all of our mineral revenue has dropped. That used to feed our schools. In 2015, before everything fell out, we were coming in with, they call them FMRs, federal mineral royalties, for our school program at like $800 million a year. Once 2015 came, thank you, Obama, those dropped off to about $190 million a year. So when you were used to feeding schools and feeding your program, that's dropped out. And so now you hear from old appropriators, they're like, it's always looked like that. It's always, but being a conservative, it concerns me. So that's why we're just really trying to be cautious with our budget. Another issue I see is, economic development, and it's just such an interesting, like, where are we at in that? And the state, there's a hard line of people who are like, yep, the state needs to be involved. And then you have people like, really? Does the state need to be competing with private business? I'm a private business. And certain entities in Wyoming Business Council, have given my competitors money. My tax dollars have gone to subsidize my competitor. So those are things like, where are we at on those programs? So that's a huge issue. I'm hearing from my constituents, they're concerned about transparency and economic development, period, whether it's data centers or nuclear. Not that they may be against it, but can they be involved? Can they understand what's going on? What can we do to put in some protections to protect them, to protect our resources? Those are all things that I'm hearing and seeing. And as an appropriator, like, okay, where are we at? And always roads, and you hear that a lot, that I really believe, and just sitting on appropriations and looking back, our infrastructure, just basic infrastructure, has not been funded. Our state forestry department, we just revamped that. And yes, we had to grow that part of government because that's a function of government. Our roads haven't been addressed. We put $3 billion over the last few years into savings and not addressed the roads. So we are addressing that in the Appropriations Committee. We decided to set aside about $67 million a year towards roads to help get us caught up, but it's going to take us 10 years. The cost of asphalt's only going up. It's $2 million a mile to pave a road.
Holy cow.
So, yeah. So, and probably more. That was 6 months to 8 months ago. That was the figure. I'm sure it's more now. But those are things that I'm looking at as an appropriator. Like, we just need to really focus on infrastructure.
Okay, we're in the middle of an election, and there's been a big push the last couple of years to kind of shore up our election system. There's been, God, I don't know how many bills that we've pushed through. So, considering that we were in an election, let's say you get in the Senate. What's the key election integrity bill that you think we need to pass, like number one on the agenda?
I think we need to pass paper ballots. For the most part, most of our counties are on paper ballots, but a couple of our larger counties are not. They're still on, they're on machines, not even tabulator machines. They're voting on a machine. That needs to end. It needs to be paper ballots and drop boxes. I think if we can get those two things, banning ballot drop boxes, they're not safe, they're not secure. I lived in Portland, Oregon, where I took my paper ballot and gave it to some guy on a corner of a street. This is horrifying to me now as a 21-year-old. However, that's how they did it. They would have, it's a big city. They'd have boxes. You'd shove it in there. You know that they just took those boxes. And I'm sure they saw us comment like Wyoming people like, oh, we know how they're going to vote.
Right.
But those are things that we need to make sure are secure. Those two things I think are paramount at this point. And those are easy bills. Those are pretty much, that's like a 70%, 80% issue. So I think if we can get those two things done, I would be happy with that.
Okay, now you're leaving the House of Representatives, and Lord knows, this is a totally unfair question, but it's my program, and I get to ask them. So what issues, you're leaving the House, what issues do you think still need to be addressed that maybe you worked on, or maybe your conservative colleagues in the House worked on? What are those issues that we need to continually focus on?
Sure. I think judicial reform is huge. That's going to be, I think, top of the list. And that's across the board. You're not just talking conservatives. You're talking our moderates are like, we got to do something. They know. That's an issue. Abortion it seems to be the battle. It's like they just want us to keep rehashing this. Abortion is going to be on there. One thing that I am really digging into, and I actually had the governor's office come down and ask me, like, would you run some tort reform, malpractice insurance? We need to reform that a little bit. That will help our, health insurance rates maybe a little, but it is something that our maternity wards are struggling with. Our hospitals are struggling with. The malpractice rates are extremely high, and there's a couple little tweaks we can do. Not a lot because of our Constitution, but that needs to be addressed. Something I'd like to take to the Senate.
Abby, this is Ken. Great to see you.
Hey, Ken. Yeah, you too.
Yeah, and especially where you can't reach me. So.
Oh, yeah.
Do you often slap Ken on the back of the head?
And she kicks me in the shins.
I kick him in the shins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I deserve it. I deserve it. There's no problem there. No, that last question, that's one that I love when people ask me. One of the problems in the Wyoming legislature, in my view, is that there has not been a good channel of cooperation between the two chambers. And to take a few of us from the House and begin to make some inroads into the Senate, that I think is going to be a tremendous help, because we have the chambers then perhaps working more together than has been in the past. And that's one of the things that I look for. And then I have to end that with the appropriations question. Wouldn't you agree?
I absolutely would agree. I think that's a great point. We have a great collaboration in the House. Regardless of what people are like, oh my gosh, they're all conspiring together and they're voting in a block. We all have similar views. We ran on a platform and on a promise, and so we have similar views. There's nothing wrong with that. But taking that, just that camaraderie and like, hey, we have a goal, we have a purpose, and taking that to the Senate, that's important. And I'm a bit of a peacemaker. I'm a pastor's kid, and so been in ministry a long time. I think it's important. I work well with the other side. I really do, and you have to.
We'll continue with Abby Angelos in just a second. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout.
Hey, Wyoming Patriots! Don't miss the Patriots of the West Freedom Fest this July 10th at the Lander High School Auditorium. Doors open at 5, rally starts at 5:30. Enjoy some barbecue while you hear from Wyoming's boldest conservative voices. Harriet Hageman, Chuck Gray, Gabe Saint of TPUSA, plus Brent Behan, Rachel Williams, Tom Kelly, Scott Smith, and more. This is where real conservatives connect, fire up, and fight for Wyoming values. Great fun, great music, and the kind of energy you'll be talking about for months. Make your plans now to join the fight for freedom. Patriots of the West Freedom Fest, July 10th at the Lander High School Auditorium at 5:30 p.m. Be there. Let's party like it's 1776. Paid for by WCFL PAC.
This is Brent Bien, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bien for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. It's about to be hotter than the blazes of Hades outside, my friends, and all of your fun summertime playthings are out in it. That's bad. But what's even worse is so is your wife's car. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you had a garage or a barn or a roping arena or maybe something bigger like a warehouse that you could put all of that stuff in, and your wife's car wouldn't be 180 degrees when she hops into it? And it would be great had you called Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. You should fix that problem right now. Give them a call, 307-674-2532. They're the experts in metal building construction. They've been doing it longer than anybody else around, and they do a much better job. So whatever building you're thinking about, call Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com. And now, back to my interview with Representative Abby Angelos.
If you're going to serve the constituents of Wyoming, and we're not going to agree, but we have to work together. And so I think that's important. And I pride myself on saying I will work with the other side. Whatever we need to do, let's get it done for Wyoming.
You know, it's interesting you bring up the whole, well, they vote in a block. The other side does too.
It does.
And actually, if you look at, and I was looking for it the other day, but usually evidence-based Wyoming has a visual representation of where people vote. And the reality is the folks on the other side, they're in this like little tight circle, and weird, they're all little blue dots. And then on the other side, you see the folks who generally vote, you know, along with the conservatives, they're kind of spread out along the whole thing.
Yeah, if you
really
pull
are.
up this last year's though, that is less so. I've done that because I wanted to use that graphic, and just as soon as you think you want to use a graphic, it changes. But I think part of it comes down to we were the ones that were driving the agenda, and we were working together to do that. And so we naturally try to kind of pull together. And then there were some things they could accept, some things they couldn't. They had different ways of fighting against it, and they got spread out a little more. So that's a little less true in this last session.
Well, and if I could just interrupt, it's something that I would like to say. That is the representation of the people. The people of Wyoming 2 years ago gave us a mandate, and they said, we are sick of status quo. We want true conservatives, the conservative value and mindset to go into the legislature. That is a representation of the Wyoming people, that graph. And I think that's what's important is there may be an agenda or people who don't vote conservative or don't vote with us, or they say we vote in a block. That representation of the Wyoming House is of the state of Wyoming, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's say you're successful. What are the first three bills that you're introducing?
Well, I kind of talked about it, malpractice insurance reform. We need to work on that. Man, 3 bills. Ooh, I'll have to think on that, on exactly it depends on what committees I'm on. So I'm on appropriations. Appropriators don't get to do a whole lot of bills. We're kind of shoved away.
Well, you spend a heck of a lot of money, though. Holy crap.
Oh, we do. There's times where I was like, I'm going to be sick. I can't spend any more. It's hard, especially as a frugal person, to look at that. But malpractice insurance will be it'll be a heavy lift. I think every lawyer in the state will come after me on it. So that's what I've heard.
Why is it Ken wants to jump in here.
I do. And Abby, I want to work with you on that because one of the things that I got myself put on, and I know you're aware of this, is it's a task force to look at health. What can we actually do to alter or to affect healthcare?
Get out of the way.
And that's true. And this whole idea of tort reform is probably the most effective tool we might have. Yeah. And so I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, and just in talking to our doctors, they're like, this would be really helpful. just this little tiny thing. Let me give you a scenario. I've said this on the floor, and I think it's important. In Rollins, their maternity ward that was shut down, they were paying like $4 million in maternity malpractice insurance.
Holy cow.
They had 9 babies born. 9 babies does not pay $4 million in a premium. So this is like the crux of why we're losing that critical access care. And I talked to my hospital here, and the board members are like, our malpractice insurance is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
So yeah, other states have bounds on it. We don't. And so it needs to be addressed.
Okay. So I'm right. I'm publishing an article later today about a number of debates where candidates didn't show up. And I find it personally offensive when candidates just say, I'm just not going to be there. So why is it important for a somebody running for office to go to all of these debates? I know here in Sheridan, I don't know how many there are, but there's a bunch of them. Why is it important that you go to these events?
Well, it's important to put your face in front of the people. If you are going to represent them at a state level in Cheyenne, you really need to be able to understand their concerns. They need to be able to understand you. And having a conversation or listening to a conversation face to face or in person is so different than on a platform piece of paper that you hand out at a door. I actually had someone last night, I was knocking on doors, and she said, I am so glad you actually put why you're running and what you've done. Because she's like, everybody says they're for Wyoming. She's like, what does that mean? And so it's so important to make that connection with the people that you want to represent, and I pride myself in that, in really putting the people first. Like I always say, I don't have an agenda given to me by like corporations or an outside group. My agenda is given to me by the people. And that I tread on that so lightly because it is utmost and the most important.
Excellent. All right. So last question, and then I want you to tell my viewers how they get a hold of you. But why should Campbell County citizens vote for Abby Angelos and not the other guy?
So I keep my promises. I have a proven track record of, exactly where I stand and what I'm going to vote on. I mean, you do. It's the benefit of moving into the Senate from the House of having that track record. I am open to work with anybody. Anybody can call me up. I am at every single meeting, I think, that any of my locals invite me to. I love to be there. It's so important. So I can give them that promise that I'm going to listen to them, put them first, and speak for them. And maybe they disagree with me. I'm okay with that. I welcome that. Sometimes people can change my mind on an issue, and I
heard you. I heard you guys don't listen to anybody.
We don't. No, yeah. No, it is important and just educating yourself. I don't know everything. And I think that's what you have to come into the legislature as, knowing this is an educational opportunity and you need to really truly listen to the people and understand that issue. So I'm happy to represent them. I love my job. I love what I do. And I just ask for their vote.
All right. How do we get a hold of you if my viewers want to talk to you?
So they can look me up on Facebook. I think it's Abby Angelos for Wyoming. I'm pretty active on there. You can go to my website, voteforabby.com, and it's all spelled out, vote for Abby. And more on what I've passed, what my platform is. Easy to get a hold of me. You can call me on the phone. My phone number, I think, is even listed on my Facebook page. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Abby. Well, I appreciate you taking the time this morning. Good luck in your campaign, and keep me updated. And I'm sure we'll talk later on in this election. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. Have a good day.
You too. All right. Well, that was Abby Angelos. She's running for the Wyoming Senate. That'll do it for today's installment of the broadcast. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk again on Monday, where we'll have an interview with candidate for the U.S. House, Earl Collier. But for now, my friends, from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.